A ring slipped onto her finger at dawn, not by a lover, but by a man whose empire runs on blood and silence. Danielle Ardent never wanted to fall again, especially not at 43, and especially not for someone like him. But when coffee spills, when power meets quiet strength, when Seoul's most dangerous man decides you're worth the risk, choice becomes something else entirely. This is the story of a woman who rebuilt herself from ruin, only to choose a future carved in shadows. Will she survive it? Stay until the end, hit like, and comment your city so I know how far this story travels. The cafe on Insadong Gil opened at 5:47 a.m., which meant Danielle Ardent arrived at 5:52. 6 minutes was enough time for the owner, Mrs. Cho, to unlock the door, flip on the espresso machine, and wipe down the corner table by the window. The one Danielle had claimed every weekday morning for the past 11 months. Routine was control. Control was survival. She set her laptop bag on the chair, pulled out her phone, checked the time. 5:53. Perfect. The city outside was still gray, the kind of pre-dawn quiet that Seoul wore like a secret before the flood of morning traffic and delivery trucks and the 10 million lives crashing into each other. Danielle liked it here. Silence had become a language she spoke fluently. Mrs. Cho didn't ask anymore. By the time Danielle sat down, the Americano was already brewing. "Good morning," Mrs. Cho said in Korean, setting the cup down with both hands, the formal gesture still intact, even after nearly a year of this. "Good morning," Danielle replied in English. She'd been here 3 years and her Korean was passable, functional, but she kept her mornings in English. It was a small rebellion, a way of reminding herself she didn't owe this city everything. Mrs. Cho smiled and returned to the counter. The cafe smelled like roasted beans and old wood. Danielle opened her laptop, pulled up the spreadsheet she'd been working on the night before, freelance consulting for a mid-sized logistics firm in Busan, and let herself fall into the numbers. This was peace. This was enough. Until it wasn't. The door chimed at 6:14. Danielle didn't look up. She'd trained herself not to notice the comings and goings of strangers. Seoul was a city of 8 million people who didn't care about her, and she returned the favor. But then someone stopped beside her table. "Excuse me." The voice was male, low, deliberate. Korean accent, but the English was perfect. Danielle glanced up, already preparing the polite smile she reserved for interruptions. The man standing there was younger than her, early 30s maybe. Dark suit, no tie, collar open just enough to suggest he wasn't trying. Hair swept back, still damp like he'd showered recently. His face was sharp in all the places hers had softened over the years. Jawline clean, eyes unreadable. And he was holding a to-go cup. "I think I'm about to ruin your morning," he said. Danielle frowned. "What?" He gestured toward her table. "My fault. I wasn't paying attention." That's when she saw it. The tiny wobble in his hand, the angle of the cup tipping just slightly forward. She had maybe half a second to react, but her brain was still catching up when the lid popped off and hot coffee arced through the air in a perfect, terrible line. It hit her laptop dead center. "Shit!" Danielle shot up, chair scraping loud against the floor. The coffee spread fast, pooling across the keyboard, dripping onto her lap, soaking into the spreadsheet she'd printed out as backup because she didn't trust cloud storage. The man moved faster than she did. He set his cup down, pulled a handkerchief from his jacket pocket. Who the hell carried a handkerchief anymore? And started dabbing at the laptop screen. "Don't touch it," Danielle snapped, grabbing the laptop and tilting it sideways to drain the liquid. "You'll make it worse." "I'm sorry." He stepped back, hands raised slightly, palms open. "Completely my fault." Danielle's heart was pounding, adrenaline spiking in a way that felt disproportionate to spilled coffee, but she couldn't stop it. The laptop was 3 years old, already slow, and she hadn't backed up her work in 2 weeks because she kept telling herself she'd do it tomorrow. Mrs. Cho hurried over with a towel. "Oh no! Oh no!" "It's fine," Danielle said, though it wasn't. She pressed the towel against the keyboard, watching coffee drip onto the floor. The screen flickered once, then went black. "I'll replace it," the man said. Danielle looked up. "What?" "The laptop. I'll replace it." He said it like it was obvious, like spilling coffee on a stranger's computer came with automatic restitution. "You don't have to I do." He pulled out his phone, tapped something, then looked at her. What model is it? Danielle stared at him. Are you serious? Yes. You can't just... She stopped, shook her head. It's a MacBook Air, 2022. But I'm not asking you to... Done. He slipped his phone back into his pocket. It'll be delivered this afternoon. What's your address? I'm not giving you my address. He paused, then nodded. Fair. I'll have it sent here. Mrs. Cho can hold it for you. Mrs. Cho was watching this entire exchange like it was a drama she didn't have subtitles for. Danielle set the soaked laptop on the table, tried to breathe. You don't need to do this. I do, he said again. I ruined your morning. Let me fix it. There was something in the way he said it, calm, certain, like he was used to fixing things. Danielle didn't know whether to be irritated or impressed. Fine, she said finally, but I'm paying you back. No. Yes. He smiled, just barely. We'll see. And then he left. No name, no explanation, just a nod to Mrs. Cho and the door chiming behind him. Danielle stood there, coffee-stained and furious and inexplicably off balance. Who was that? She asked Mrs. Cho. Mrs. Cho shook her head slowly, her expression somewhere between awe and concern. I don't know, but he's been coming here for a week. A week? Every morning, same time as you. Mrs. Cho glanced toward the door. He always sits in the back. Never talks to anyone. Danielle looked down at her ruined laptop, the spreadsheet still visible through the cracked screen, numbers bleeding into each other like a mistake she couldn't undo. She didn't know it yet, but the man's name was Jae-hyun Kwon, and he hadn't spilled that coffee by accident. Sounds. The new laptop arrived at 2:37 p.m. Danielle had spent the day at a co-working space in Gangnam, using a loaner computer and silently cursing herself for not keeping better backups. By the time she returned to the cafe, Mrs. Cho was waiting with a sleek white box sitting on the counter. He sent this, Mrs. Cho said, her tone carefully neutral. Danielle stared at the box. It was the right model, the right color, still sealed. Did he leave a name? Danielle asked. No, just a note. Mrs. Cho handed her a small card, the kind that came with expensive gifts. The handwriting was neat, unfussy. Sorry again. JK. Danielle turned the card over. Nothing else. This is insane, she muttered. Mrs. Cho shrugged. Rich men do insane things. You think he's rich? I think he walks like someone who's never worried about money. Danielle thought about that. The suit, the handkerchief, the way he'd pulled out his phone and ordered a laptop like it was a cup of coffee. She should have refused it, should have sent it back. But her old laptop was dead, and she had 3 client deadlines this week, and pride was expensive. So she took the box home. He came back the next morning. Danielle saw him the moment he walked in. Same dark suit, same unhurried stride. He ordered at the counter, paid, then turned and met her eyes across the room. For a second, neither of them moved. Then he walked over. Mind if I sit? He asked. Danielle glanced at the empty cafe. There are 6 other tables. I know. She should have said no. Should have kept her headphones in, her eyes on her screen. But curiosity was a hook, and she'd already bitten. Fine, she said. He sat across from her, setting his coffee down with the same careful precision he'd used yesterday. Except this time, the lid stayed on. Thank you for the laptop, Danielle said, because manners still mattered even when she didn't want them to. You're welcome. I'm still paying you back. No. Yes. He smiled again, that same faint curve of his mouth. You're persistent. You're reckless with expensive apologies. It wasn't that expensive. Danielle raised an eyebrow. A MacBook Air is $1,500. I've made worse investments. She didn't know what to say to that, so she took a sip of her coffee and studied him. Up close, he was even younger than she'd thought, maybe 32, 33, clean-shaven, no wedding ring, the kind of face that belonged in a magazine ad for watches or whiskey. Do you always buy laptops for strangers? She asked. Only when I spill coffee on them. Does that happen often? First time. Lucky me. He leaned back in his chair, relaxed but watchful. You live in Seoul? 3 years. You like it? It's fine. That's not an answer. Danielle set her cup down. It's the answer you're getting. He didn't push, just nodded, like he'd expected that. What about you? She asked, against her better judgment. You live here? Born here? And you spend your mornings in a cafe in Insadong? Sometimes. Why? Quiet. She almost laughed. Seoul is the opposite of quiet. Depends where you go. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the city was waking up, cars honking, voices rising, the rhythm of 1,000,000 people starting their day. Inside, the cafe stayed still. I'm Danielle, she said finally. Jae-hyun. Nice to meet you, Jae-hyun. You too. He didn't ask for her last name, didn't ask what she did for work or why she was in Seoul or any of the usual small talk questions. He just sat there, drinking his coffee, watching her like she was a puzzle he wasn't in a hurry to solve. It should have been uncomfortable. It wasn't. He came back the next day, and the day after that. At first, Danielle told herself it was coincidence. Seoul was a small world for expats and early risers. Maybe he just liked the cafe. Maybe Mrs. Cho made the best Americano in the neighborhood. But by the end of the week, coincidence stopped making sense. He always arrived at the same time, always ordered the same drink, always asked if he could sit, and always left after exactly 20 minutes. They didn't talk much. A few words here and there, weather, traffic, the construction noise on the next block. Nothing personal, nothing deep. But he listened. That was the thing Danielle noticed most. When she mentioned a difficult client, he didn't offer advice. When she talked about missing good bagels, he didn't laugh it off. He just listened, like every word mattered. It had been a long time since anyone listened to her like that. Bam. On the 8th day, he didn't come. Danielle told herself she wasn't disappointed, told herself it didn't matter. She had work to do, emails to answer, a life that didn't revolve around some stranger's coffee schedule. But she checked the door every time it chimed. He showed up at 6:47, 33 minutes late. Sorry, he said, sliding into the chair across from her. Meeting ran long. You don't owe me an apology. Still, he looked tired, not exhausted, but worn in a way she hadn't seen before. His collar was still perfect, his suit still pressed, but there was something in his eyes, something heavy. Bad meeting? She asked. Complicated. Work? Something like that. Danielle waited, but he didn't elaborate. She'd learned by now that Jae-hyun only gave what he wanted to give. Pushing didn't work. Do you want to talk about it? She asked. No. Okay. He looked at her then, really looked, and for the first time since they'd met, she saw something crack in that careful composure. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For not asking more questions. Danielle shrugged. Everyone's got things they don't want to talk about. Including you? Especially me. He smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Fair enough. They sat in silence again, but it felt different now. Less like two strangers occupying the same space, more like two people choosing to be there. Danielle didn't know when it had shifted. She wasn't sure she wanted to. The art gallery event was Jae-hyun's idea. There's an opening tomorrow night, he said one morning, setting a small card on the table between them. Contemporary work. Some interesting pieces. Danielle picked up the card. The gallery was in Samcheong-dong, one of the upscale neighborhoods she usually avoided. You're inviting me to an art show? If you're interested. Why? Because I think you'd like it. You don't know what I like. I know you drink your coffee black. I know you hate small talk. I know you've been wearing the same 3 sweaters for 2 weeks because you don't care about fashion, but you care about being comfortable. He paused. And I know you looked at Mrs. Cho's print behind the counter for 5 minutes last Tuesday. Danielle blinked. You're observant. I pay attention. She should have said no. Should have kept the boundary line clear, but she'd spent 3 years in Seoul avoiding risks, avoiding people, avoiding anything that felt like it might crack her open again. And she was tired of it. What time? She asked. 7. I'll think about it. He stood, picking up his empty cup. I hope you come. She almost didn't. Danielle stood in front of her closet at 6:15, staring at clothes she hadn't worn in years. The black dress felt too formal. The jeans felt too casual. Everything else felt like a costume. She settled on dark slacks and a gray blouse, safe, neutral, forgettable. But when she walked into the gallery at 7:08, Jae-hyun noticed. He was standing near the entrance, talking to a man in an expensive suit. When he saw her, he excused himself and crossed the room in 4 strides. You came, he said. I'm late. You're here. He was wearing a different suit tonight. Charcoal, perfectly tailored, the kind of thing that cost more than her rent. But it was the way people looked at him that caught her attention. Not just looked, deferred, stepped aside, lowered their voices when he passed. Popular guy, Danielle said quietly. Jae-hyun glanced around, then back at her. I know people. That's one way to put it. He almost smiled. Come on, I want to show you something. He led her through the gallery, past clusters of well-dressed guests holding wine glasses and speaking in low, polished tones. The art was bold, geometric shapes, violent colors, pieces that demanded attention. Jae-hyun stopped in front of a large canvas near the back. It was mostly black, with streaks of gold cutting through like cracks in armor. What do you think? He asked. Danielle studied it. It's angry. Is that bad? No, just honest. He looked at her, something shifting in his expression. I thought you'd say that. Why? Because you're honest too. Before she could respond, a voice cut through the room. Jae-hyun! They both turned. A woman in a red dress was walking toward them, her heels clicking against the polished floor. She was stunning, early 30s, flawless makeup, the kind of beauty that required effort and money. Min-seo, Jae-hyun said evenly. The woman smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I didn't know you were bringing a guest. This is Danielle, Jae-hyun said. Danielle, this is Min-seo. She curated the exhibit. Min-seo's gaze flicked over Danielle, assessing. Nice to meet you. You too, Danielle said, though the air between them had already turned cold. How do you two know each other? Min-seo asked, her tone light but pointed. We met at a cafe, Jae-hyun said. How charming. Min-seo's smile sharpened. I didn't realize you were seeing anyone. I'm not. Oh. Min-seo's eyes flicked to Danielle again. My mistake. Danielle felt the weight of it then, the judgment, the curiosity, the quiet dismissal. She'd been here before. 3 years ago, standing in a lawyer's office while her ex-husband's new girlfriend waited in the car outside. Too old, unexpected, temporary. Excuse me, Danielle said, stepping back. I need some air. She didn't wait for Jae-hyun to respond. She just turned and walked toward the exit, heart pounding, hands shaking, hating herself for feeling this way. She made it to the street before he caught up. Danielle? She stopped but didn't turn around. I shouldn't have come. Why? Because this, she gestured vaguely toward the gallery, isn't my world. It's not mine either. She turned then, finally meeting his eyes. Don't lie to me, Jae-hyun. He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the way his jaw tightened when he was holding something back. You're right, he said quietly. It's my world. But I didn't bring you here to impress you. I brought you here because I wanted you to see it. To see me. Why? Because I'm tired of people only seeing what I show them. Danielle's breath caught. What does that mean? He looked at her for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them. Then he reached out and took her hand, not pulling, just holding. Come with me, he said. Where? Somewhere quieter. She should have said no. Should have gone home, closed the door, reminded herself why she'd sworn off risks 3 years ago. But his hand was warm, and his eyes were honest, and she was so tired of being safe. So she went. The car was black, sleek, and waiting at the curb like it had been summoned by thought alone. Jae-hyun opened the door for her, and Danielle hesitated only a second before sliding into the back seat. The leather was soft, expensive, The interior smelled like new money and old secrets. Jaehyun got in beside her, close but not touching. He said something in Korean to the driver, a man in his 50s with a rigid posture and eyes that never left the road, and the car pulled smoothly into traffic. "Where are we going?" Danielle asked. "Somewhere you can breathe." She almost laughed. "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now." They drove in silence through the neon-lit streets of Seoul, past the late-night crowd spilling out of bars and restaurants, past the construction cranes that never seemed to sleep. Danielle watched the city blur by, her reflection ghosting in the window, pale, uncertain, out of place. "Minseo seems nice," she said finally, the lie tasting bitter. Jaehyun didn't take the bait. "She's ambitious." "Is that code for something?" "It's code for she wants things I can't give her." "Like what?" "Access." Danielle turned to look at him. "To what?" He met her eyes, and for a moment she thought he might actually tell her, but then his expression shuddered, and he looked away. "It's complicated," he said. "You say that a lot." "Because it's true a lot." The car turned onto a quieter street, the buildings getting taller, the sidewalks emptier. Danielle felt her pulse pick up, that old instinct whispering warnings she'd learned to trust. "Jaehyun, yeah? If this is some kind of setup, it's not." "How do I know that?" He looked at her again, steady and unflinching. "You don't, but I'm asking you to trust me anyway." That's a terrible sales pitch. "I'm not selling anything." The car stopped in front of a building she didn't recognize. Modern glass and steel, 12 stories high, understated in the way that screamed wealth. The driver got out and opened Jaehyun's door without a word. Jaehyun stepped out, then turned back to offer Danielle his hand. She stared at it. "Last chance to change your mind," he said quietly. Danielle thought about the gallery, the judgmental eyes, the way Minseo had looked at her like she was a stain on expensive fabric. She thought about her ex-husband, the divorce papers, the 3 years she'd spent building walls so high nobody could climb them. And then she thought about the way Jaehyun listened, the way he'd replaced her laptop without expecting anything in return, the way he'd shown up every morning for 2 weeks just to sit across from her in silence. She took his hand. The penthouse was on the top floor. The elevator ride was smooth, soundless, the kind of engineering that cost more than most people made in a year. Jaehyun stood beside her, hands in his pockets, watching the numbers climb. "Do you live here?" Danielle asked. "Sometimes." "What does that mean?" "It means I have a few places." "How many is a few?" "Enough." The elevator doors opened directly into the apartment. No hallway, no neighbors, just a massive open space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River. The city sprawled below them like a living circuit board, lights pulsing in patterns that felt almost hypnotic. Danielle stepped inside slowly, taking it in. The furniture was minimal, dark wood, clean lines, nothing excessive, but every piece looked deliberate, chosen. There were no personal touches, no photos, no clutter, no evidence that anyone actually lived here. "It's beautiful," she said, because it was. "It's empty," Jaehyun corrected. He moved to the kitchen, an island of marble and chrome, and pulled out a bottle of whiskey. "You drink?" "Sometimes." He poured 2 glasses, neat, and brought one to her. Their fingers brushed when she took it, a brief point of contact that felt heavier than it should. "To honesty," he said, raising his glass. Danielle raised hers. "To not knowing what the hell I'm doing here." They drank. The whiskey burned clean, smoky, the kind of thing you sipped and appreciated. Danielle set her glass on the coffee table and turned to face him. "Okay," she said. "I'm here. Now tell me what this is." Jaehyun set his glass down too, then leaned against the back of the couch, arms crossed. He looked at her for a long moment, like he was deciding something. "What do you want to know?" he asked. "Everything." "That's a lot." "Start small then. What do you do for a living?" "I run a business." "What kind?" "Import, export, logistics, investments." Danielle raised an eyebrow. "That's vague." "It's accurate." "Is it legal?" He smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Mostly." "Mostly?" "I operate in gray areas. Sometimes the laws don't keep up with the market. Sometimes the market doesn't care about the laws." Danielle felt something cold settle in her chest. So you're a criminal. I'm a businessman who understands that morality is expensive. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're going to like. She wanted to leave, wanted to grab her coat and walk out and never look back, but her feet stayed planted and her mouth kept moving. Why did you bring me here? She asked. Because I'm tired of lying. You've been lying to me. Not directly, but I haven't been telling you the truth either. Danielle's hands clenched. So tell me now. Jae-hyun straightened, his posture shifting into something harder, more guarded. You know how people step aside when I walk into a room? Yeah? It's not because they respect me, it's because they're afraid. Of what? Of what I can do. Of who I know. Of what happens to people who get in my way. Danielle's throat went dry. Are you threatening me? No. He said it fast, firm. I would never hurt you, Danielle. But I need you to understand, being around me comes with risks. People will judge you, they'll question your decisions. They'll assume you're using me, or I'm using you, or both. Are you? Am I what? Using me? Jae-hyun crossed the space between them in 2 strides, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. I spilled coffee on your laptop because I wanted an excuse to talk to you. I've been coming to that cafe every morning for 2 weeks because I wanted to see you. I brought you here because I'm tired of pretending I don't care. Danielle's breath hitched. Why me? Because you don't want anything from me. You don't know that. I do. You didn't ask my last name. You didn't ask where I work or how much money I have. You didn't take a picture of me and post it online. You just sat there like I was normal. You're not normal. I know. His voice dropped, rougher now. But with you, I get to pretend. Danielle stepped back, needing space, needing air. This is insane. I know. I'm 43 years old, Jae-hyun. I'm divorced, broke, and living in a city where I don't speak the language well enough to order takeout without pointing at a menu. What the hell do you want from me? I want you to stay. Why? Because I haven't felt this honest in 5 years. She stared at him, this man who walked like he owned the world, but stood in front of her like he was asking permission to exist. And God help her, she believed him. I need time, she said quietly. Take all the time you need. I'm serious, Jae-hyun. This is... She gestured helplessly at the penthouse, the city, the impossible weight of everything he'd just said. This is too much. I know. So why are you pushing? I'm not pushing. I'm waiting. For what? For you to stop being afraid. Danielle's hands shook. I'm not afraid. Yes, you are. And I don't blame you. He reached out, slow enough that she could pull away if she wanted, and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. But I'm not him, Danielle. You don't know who he is. I know he left, and I know you're still carrying it. She wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, that she was fine, that she'd moved on. But the words stuck in her throat, and all she could do was stand there, trembling, while this stranger saw through every lie she'd been telling herself. I should go, she whispered. Jae-hyun nodded. I'll take you home. The drive back was silent. Danielle sat as far from him as the back seat allowed, her arms wrapped around herself like armor. Jae-hyun didn't try to close the distance. He just stared out the window, jaw tight, hands folded in his lap. When they pulled up outside her building, a modest walk-up in Yongsan-gu, he got out first and opened her door. Thank you, Danielle said stiffly. Danielle. She stopped, 1 foot on the curb. I meant what I said, Jae-hyun told her. I'm not going anywhere, but I won't push. If you want space, I'll give it to you. If you want me gone, I'm gone. She looked at him, this man who'd just unraveled her entire evening with brutal honesty and hated how much she wanted to believe him. I'll see you around, she said. Yeah, you will. She walked into her building without looking back, climbed the stairs to her 3rd-floor apartment, locked the door, and slid down to the floor with her back against the wood. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Sleep well. J.K. Danielle stared at it for a long time before she deleted it. She didn't go to the cafe the next morning, or the morning after that. For 3 days, Danielle avoided Insadong-gil entirely, working from her apartment and ordering delivery and telling herself she was being smart, not cowardly. But on the fourth morning, she woke up at 5:30 a.m., restless and angry and sick of hiding. She showered, dressed, grabbed her laptop, and walked the 15 minutes to Mrs. Cho's cafe like she was going to war. He was already there. Same corner table, same black coffee, same unhurried posture, like he'd been expecting her. Danielle walked over and sat down without asking. "Hi," she said. "Hi. I'm still figuring this out." "Okay. I don't know if I can do this." "That's fair. But I don't want to run either." Jae-hyun leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes locked on hers. "So what do you want?" Danielle thought about it. About the last 3 years. About the fear, the safety, the slow suffocation of a life built on never taking risks. "I want to see where this goes," she said finally. "But I need you to be honest with me. No more vague answers, no more gray areas. Deal. And if I ask you something, you answer, even if you think I won't like it. Agreed. And if this gets dangerous, it won't. You can't promise that." "No," Jae-hyun admitted. "But I can promise I'll do everything in my power to keep you safe." Danielle exhaled slowly. "Okay? Okay? Yeah, okay." He smiled then, real and unguarded, and it hit her like a punch to the chest how beautiful he was when he let himself be. "Coffee?" he asked. "Please." Mich. The next 2 weeks were a study in contradictions. Mornings at the cafe felt normal, easy even. They talked about books, movies, the weird quirks of Seoul versus other cities Danielle had lived in. Jae-hyun had a dry sense of humor that snuck up on her, and she found herself laughing more than she had in months. But then there were the other moments. The way people watched them when they walked down the street together. The way Jae-hyun's phone would buzz at odd hours, and his expression would shift into something cold and unreachable. The way he'd sometimes go quiet mid-conversation, like he was listening to something she couldn't hear. "Where do you go?" she asked him one morning. "What do you mean? When you disappear like that? In your head?" He stirred his coffee, not looking at her. "Work. What kind of work requires that much mental real estate? The kind that doesn't let go. That's not healthy. I know." Danielle set her cup down. "Jae-hyun." "Yeah? Are you in danger?" He looked up, surprised. "Why do you ask?" "Because you carry yourself like someone who's always watching the exits." He smiled faintly. "I do that naturally." "That's not an answer." "No, it's not." She waited. Jae-hyun sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. "There are people who don't like the work I do. People who think I've overstepped. People who want what I have. And I handle it." "How?" "Carefully." Danielle's chest tightened. "That's still vague." "I know, but it's all I can give you right now." "Why?" "Because the less you know, the safer you are." "That's bullshit." "Maybe, but it's true." She wanted to push, wanted to demand answers, to make him strip away every layer of protection until there was nothing left but raw truth. But she'd learned over the past 2 weeks that Jae-hyun gave information the way a safe gave up its contents, slowly, with the right combination, and only when he was ready. So she let it go. For now. The shift happened on a Thursday. Danielle was walking home from a client meeting in Itaewon when she felt it, that prickle on the back of her neck that meant someone was watching. She turned, scanning the street, but saw nothing unusual. Just the typical midday crowd, tourists and locals blending into the rhythm of the city. She kept walking, faster now, hands shoved into her coat pockets. The feeling didn't go away. By the time she reached her building, her heart was pounding. She fumbled with her keys, got inside, locked the door, and leaned against it, breathing hard. Her phone rang. Jae-hyun. "Hello?" Her voice came out shaky. "Where are you?" he asked. No preamble. "Home. Why?" "Stay there." "What's going on?" "Just stay inside, lock the door. Don't answer for anyone except me." Jaehyun, you're scaring me. I know, I'm sorry. Just, please, trust me. He hung up. Danielle stared at her phone, panic rising like floodwater. She checked the locks again, then the windows, then stood in the middle of her tiny living room feeling like prey. 20 minutes later, there was a knock. Danielle, it's me. She looked through the peephole. Jae-hyun stood in the hallway, flanked by two men she didn't recognize. Both were built like bodyguards, broad shoulders, watchful eyes, hands that stayed close to their jackets. She opened the door. Jae-hyun stepped inside alone and shut it behind him. He looked her over, quick and thorough, like he was checking for injuries. Are you okay? He asked. I don't know. You tell me. Did anyone follow you home? I thought someone was, but I didn't see anyone. Jae-hyun cursed under his breath, something sharp and vicious in Korean. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then pocketed it again. What the hell is going on? Danielle demanded. Someone's been asking questions about you. Her blood went cold. What kind of questions? Where you live, where you work, who you're seeing. Why? Jae-hyun's jaw tightened. Because they want to know if you matter to me. And do I? He looked at her, and the answer was written all over his face. Yes. Danielle sank onto the couch, legs shaking. Oh my God. I'm handling it. How? That's not something you need to worry about. Bullshit. If someone's watching me because of you, I have a right to know. Jae-hyun crouched in front of her, hands on her knees, forcing her to meet his eyes. You're right, you do. But right now, I need you to let me fix this. Fix what? Who are these people? Competitors, rivals, people who think hurting you will hurt me. Will it? Yes. Danielle's hands clenched into fists. So what now? Do I just sit here and wait for someone to kick down my door? No, you come with me. Where? Somewhere safe. For how long? Until I know you're not in danger. She wanted to scream, wanted to throw him out, change the locks, book a flight back to the States and never look back. But the fear was real, and so was the look in his eyes, desperate, protective, honest. This is insane, she whispered. I know. I barely know you. I know that too. But you're asking me to trust you with my life. Yes. Danielle closed her eyes, trying to breathe, trying to think. But all she could feel was the weight of his hands on her knees, solid and real, and the absolute certainty that if she said no, he'd walk out that door and she'd never see him again. Okay, she said finally. Jae-hyun's shoulders dropped, relief flooding his face. Okay? Yeah, okay. He stood, pulling her up with him. Pack a bag, essentials only. We leave in 10 minutes. Where are we going? You'll see. The house was outside the city, nestled in the hills above Namyangju. It was modern, isolated, surrounded by trees and high walls and security cameras that tracked their approach. The gate opened automatically as they pulled up, and Danielle felt her stomach twist. This is where you're keeping me safe? She asked. This is where I know no one can get to you without going through me first. The car stopped in front of the main entrance. Jae-hyun got out, and this time Danielle followed without waiting for him to open her door. Inside, the house was warm, lived in a way the penthouse hadn't been. There were books on the shelves, shoes by the door, a jacket slung over the back of a chair. It felt like someone actually existed here. Is this your house? Danielle asked. One of them. How many do you have? Enough. She turned on him. Stop doing that. Doing what? Deflecting, giving me half answers. I'm here, Jae-hyun. I walked away from my life because you told me I was in danger. The least you can do is be straight with me. He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. You're right. I'm sorry. So answer the question. How many houses do you have? 4 in Seoul, 2 outside the city, 1 in Busan. Jesus Christ. I move around a lot. It's safer that way. Safer from what? From people who want me dead. The words hung in the air like a blade. Danielle sat down heavily on the couch. You're not joking, are you? No. What did you do? I built an empire in a world that doesn't forgive competition. That's still vague. I know. He sat beside her, close but not touching. But if I tell you everything, you become a target, not just to the people watching you now, but to everyone who has a grudge against me. Maybe I already am. Not yet. Right now, you're just a woman I've been seen with. Interesting, but not important. If they think you know my operations, my connections, my weaknesses, then you become leverage. Danielle's hands trembled. So what am I supposed to do? Just sit here and pretend I don't know you're involved in something dangerous? Yes. That's insane. It's survival. She wanted to argue, wanted to demand better, clearer, safer, but the exhaustion was setting in, and she was so damn tired of fighting. How long do I have to stay here? She asked quietly. A few days? Maybe a week? And then? Then we figure out the next step. What if there is no next step? What if this just keeps happening? Jae-hyun reached out and took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. Then I'll keep you safe, no matter what it takes. Danielle looked down at their joined hands, at the way his grip was firm but gentle, like he was holding something fragile. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. You don't have to decide right now. When do I have to decide? When you're ready. She laughed, bitter and broken. What if I'm never ready? Then I'll wait. For how long? As long as it takes. Danielle pulled her hand free, standing up and crossing to the window. Outside, the hills rolled into darkness, the city lights glowing faint in the distance. She felt trapped, exposed, terrified. And something else, something she didn't want to name. I need to sleep, she said without turning around. Upstairs, second door on the left. Where will you be? Downstairs, keeping watch. You don't sleep? Not much. She finally turned to look at him. He was still sitting on the couch, elbows on his knees, watching her with those dark, unreadable eyes. Jae-hyun. Yeah? If this goes bad, it won't. But if it does, it won't. His voice was steel. I won't let it. Danielle wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that conviction, that certainty, but she'd trusted before, and it had cost her everything. Still, she nodded and went upstairs. Eat. She didn't sleep. For hours, Danielle lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the house settling around her. Every creak felt like a threat. Every shadow felt like a warning. Around 3 a.m., she gave up and went downstairs. Jae-hyun was sitting in the living room, laptop open on the coffee table, a glass of whiskey beside him. He looked up when she appeared. Can't sleep? He asked. No. Want company? Yeah. She sat beside him, curling her legs under her. He closed the laptop and shifted to face her. What were you working on? She asked. Damage control. For what? For bringing you into this mess. Danielle frowned. I thought you said I wasn't important enough to be leverage. You weren't. Until I brought you here. Her stomach dropped. What does that mean? Jae-hyun ran a hand through his hair, exhaustion finally showing through the cracks. It means people are watching. And now they know you're not just someone I've been seen with, you're someone I'm protecting. So I'm a liability. No, you're... He stopped, searching for the word. You're important. To who? To me. Danielle's chest tightened. We've known each other for 3 weeks. I know. That's not enough time to be important. And yet here we are. She didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to process the fact that this man, this dangerous, complicated, impossible man, was sitting in front of her, looking at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. I'm scared, she admitted. I know. I don't want to be. That's fair. But I am. Jae-hyun reached out and took her hand again, the same gentle grip as before. I'm scared too. She looked up, surprised. Of what? Of losing you. You can't lose something you don't have. Can I? His thumb brushed over her knuckles, a small gesture that felt impossibly intimate. Danielle's breath caught. Jae-hyun, I know this is fast. I know it's insane. I know every logical part of your brain is screaming at you to run. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. But I also know you haven't run yet, and that has to mean something. It means I'm an idiot. It means you're brave. Same thing. He smiled, and it was soft, real, unguarded. Maybe. They sat like that for a long time, hands linked, the silence stretching between them like a held breath. And then Danielle did something reckless. She leaned forward and kissed him. It wasn't planned, wasn't calculated, just a sudden, desperate need to feel something other than fear. Jae-hyun froze for half a second, surprised, then kissed her back, his hand sliding up to cup her jaw, his mouth warm and certain against hers. It was slow, careful, like he was afraid she'd shatter. And maybe she would. But for now, she let herself fall into it, into him, into the terrifying, impossible possibility that this might actually be real. When they finally pulled apart, Jae-hyun rested his forehead against hers, breathing hard. "Danielle," he whispered. "Yeah? You need to be sure about this." "I'm not sure about anything." "Then we should stop." "I don't want to. Neither do I. But I won't take advantage of you when you're scared." Danielle pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "I'm not scared of you, Jae-hyun. I'm scared of how much I want this." His expression shifted, something raw and vulnerable breaking through. "So what do we do?" "We stop thinking." She kissed him again, harder this time, and he responded in kind, his hand sliding into her hair, his body pressing closer. It felt like falling and flying at the same time, and for the first time in 3 years, Danielle didn't want to stop. Sect. Morning came too soon. Danielle woke up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket she didn't remember grabbing, Jae-hyun asleep in the chair across from her. His laptop was still open, the screen dark, and there were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. She watched him for a moment, this man who'd upended her entire life in less than a month, and felt something shift inside her. Not love, not yet, but the beginning of it. The dangerous, inevitable beginning. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You should leave while you still can." Danielle's blood went cold. She stared at the message, heart pounding, hands shaking. "Jae-hyun." He woke instantly, alert. "What's wrong?" She held out her phone. His expression went dark, dangerous, the kind of look that reminded her exactly who he was. "Pack your things," he said quietly. "What? Why?" "We're leaving." "Where are we going?" He stood, already moving, already planning. "Somewhere they can't find you." "Jae-hyun!" He turned, and the look in his eyes stopped her cold. "This just became war, Danielle, and I need you as far from the battlefield as possible." She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she wasn't running, wasn't hiding, but the fear was real, and so was the threat. So she packed her bag and followed him into the dark. The safe house was 2 hours outside Seoul, buried in mountains Danielle couldn't name. They'd driven in silence, Jae-hyun's jaw locked tight, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. The 2 bodyguards followed in a separate car, headlights cutting through the pre-dawn dark like searchlights. Danielle kept checking her phone. No new messages. Just that one text, glowing like a threat she couldn't erase. "You should leave while you still can." "Who sent it?" she asked for the 3rd time. "I don't know yet," Jae-hyun said, eyes on the road. "But you have a guess." "I have several." "Care to share?" "Not until I'm sure." Danielle wanted to scream, wanted to grab the wheel and force him to stop, to look at her, to give her something more than clipped answers and locked down expressions. But his face was stone, and she'd learned by now that pushing him when he looked like this only made the walls higher. So she sat and waited and tried not to think about how badly she wanted to run. The safe house was smaller than the one in Namyangju, a single-story structure with reinforced doors and windows that didn't open more than a crack. Inside, it smelled like disuse and old wood. The furniture was minimal: a couch, a table, 2 chairs, a bed in the back room. Functional. Forgettable. Jae-hyun did a sweep of the perimeter while the bodyguards posted up outside. Danielle stood in the middle of the living room, arms wrapped around herself, feeling like a prisoner in protective custody. When Jae-hyun came back inside, he locked the door behind him with 3 separate bolts. "You're safe here," he said. "For how long?" "As long as it takes." That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Danielle's hands clenched into fists. I'm tired of that line, Jae-hyun. I know. So stop using it. He looked at her then, really looked, and she saw exhaustion carved into every line of his face. He hadn't slept. Hadn't stopped moving since the text came through. And for the first time since she'd met him, he looked breakable. I'm doing everything I can, he said quietly. I know you are. But I need more than protection. I need answers. What do you want to know? Everything. Who's threatening me? Why? What did you do to make them come after me? Jae-hyun ran a hand over his face, then moved to the table and sat down heavily. Danielle followed, taking the chair across from him. There's a man, Jae-hyun said finally. His name is Choi Min-jun. He runs an organization that used to control most of the import operations in Seoul. Used to, until I took over half his territory 5 years ago. How? I offered his clients better terms, faster shipping, cleaner routes. He lost millions in the first year alone. And he's been trying to get it back ever since. More or less, Danielle leaned forward. So why come after me now? We've only known each other a few weeks. Because he's been watching, waiting for me to show weakness. And I'm the weakness. Jae-hyun's jaw tightened. You're not weak, but you matter to me. And in this world, that's the same thing. Danielle felt something cold settle in her chest. So what does he want? Money? Territory? Both? And revenge? For what? Jae-hyun hesitated, and in that pause, Danielle saw the truth he'd been holding back. You killed someone, she said. Not a question. Yes. Her stomach dropped. Who? His brother. The words hung between them like smoke. Danielle stood up, chair scraping loud against the floor. Jesus Christ, Jae-hyun. It wasn't murder. What was it then? Self-defense. His brother came after me with a knife in a warehouse in Incheon. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. Not in that moment, there wasn't. Danielle paced the small room, hands shaking, breath coming too fast. So you killed him, and now his brother wants payback, and I'm the collateral. I won't let him touch you. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. She spun on him. How? By locking me up in safe houses for the rest of my life? By turning me into a prisoner so you can feel better about dragging me into your war? Jae-hyun stood, crossing the space between them in 2 strides. I didn't drag you into anything. You chose to stay. Because you made me care about you. I didn't make you do anything. Didn't you? Her voice cracked. You showed up every morning with your perfect coffee and your careful words and your goddamn honesty, and you made me think... She stopped, swallowing hard. You made me think I could have this. Have you. Like it was safe. It is safe. Bullshit. I'm in a safe house in the middle of nowhere because someone wants to hurt me to get to you. That's the opposite of safe. Jae-hyun's hands curled into fists at his sides. I know, and I'm sorry, but I'm fixing it. How? By ending this, once and for all. Danielle's blood went cold. What does that mean? It means I'm meeting with Choi tomorrow, and I'm going to make him back off. Or what? Or I'll make sure he can't come after you ever again. The implication was clear. Danielle took a step back, shaking her head. No, you can't. I can, and I will. That's murder, Jae-hyun. It's survival. It's insane. It's the only way to keep you safe. Danielle wanted to argue, to tell him there had to be another option, but she'd seen the look in his eyes, the cold, lethal certainty of a man who'd already decided, and it terrified her. I can't be part of this, she whispered. Jae-hyun's expression didn't change. You already are. She tried to leave that night, waited until Jae-hyun went outside to talk to the guards, then grabbed her bag and headed for the door. But the locks were keyed from the inside, and she didn't have the code. Going somewhere? Danielle spun around. Jae-hyun stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face unreadable. Let me out, she said. No, you can't keep me here. I can, and I am. That's kidnapping. Call it what you want. You're not leaving until I know you're safe. Danielle's hands shook with rage. You don't get to make that decision for me. Yes, I do, because if you walk out that door, Choi's people will find you within 24 hours, and they won't be gentle. Maybe I'll take my chances. No, you won't. You don't know that. Yes, I do. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. Because you're smarter than that. And you know I'm right. Danielle wanted to hit him, wanted to scream and throw things, and make him feel even a fraction of the helplessness clawing through her chest. But he was right, and she hated him for it. I hate you, she said. I know. I should never have trusted you. Probably not. This is all your fault. I know that too. She stared at him, this man who'd upended her entire life, who'd pulled her into a nightmare she hadn't asked for, who looked at her now like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to sanity. I can't do this, she whispered. You don't have to. Just stay here. Let me handle it. And then what? And then you go back to your life, safe, free, without you. Jaehyun's jaw tightened. If that's what you want. Danielle's chest ached. I don't know what I want. Then figure it out. But do it from here, where I know you're protected. He turned and walked out, locking the door behind him. Danielle sank to the floor, back against the wall, and finally let herself cry. Truck. Morning came gray and cold. Danielle woke on the couch, still dressed, her neck stiff from the awkward angle. Jaehyun was already gone. One of the guards, a man in his 40s with a scar running down his left cheek, brought her coffee and a plate of rice and eggs. Where is he? Danielle asked. Meeting, the guard said in heavily accented English. With who? Cannot say. When will he be back? Cannot say. Danielle set the plate down untouched. Am I a prisoner here? The guard's expression didn't change. You are protected. That's not an answer. His only answer. He left, locking the door behind him. Danielle spent the next 3 hours pacing the small house like a caged animal. She checked her phone obsessively. No service, no Wi-Fi, just the same blank screen mocking her. She tried the windows, the back door, even the vents. Everything was sealed tight. By noon, she was ready to claw through the walls. And then her phone buzzed. Danielle stared at it. No service, no Wi-Fi. But the message came through anyway, bypassing every logical explanation. He's lying to you. Her hands went numb. Another message. Ask him about the deal. And another. Ask him why he really brought you here. Danielle's heart pounded so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. She stared at the messages, trying to make sense of them, trying to breathe. The door unlocked. Jaehyun walked in, suit jacket gone, sleeves rolled up, blood on his knuckles. Danielle shot to her feet. What happened? It's handled. What's handled? Whose blood is that? Doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Jaehyun moved to the sink, washing his hands with methodical precision. The meeting went well. Choi agreed to back off. Just like that? Just like that. I don't believe you. He turned, leaning against the counter, water dripping from his hands. I don't care if you believe me. It's done. Danielle's phone was still in her hand, the messages burning into her palm. What deal, Jaehyun? His expression shifted, just a flicker, but she caught it. What are you talking about? He asked. The deal. What deal did you make? I don't know what you mean. Stop lying to me. Jaehyun straightened, his posture going rigid. Who have you been talking to? Does it matter? Yes. Danielle held up her phone. Someone sent me a message. Said you're lying, said I should ask about the deal. Jaehyun crossed the room in 3 strides and took the phone from her hand. His face went pale as he read the messages. Shit, he muttered. What deal, Jaehyun? He looked up, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw fear in his eyes. It's not what you think, he said. Then tell me what it is. He handed the phone back, his jaw working like he was chewing glass. Choi wanted something in exchange for leaving you alone. What did he want? Territory? 3 of my largest shipping routes, a percentage of my profits for the next 2 years. Danielle's stomach dropped. That's millions of dollars. I know. And you agreed? Yes. Why? Because he said if I didn't, he'd kill you, slowly, and make me watch. The room tilted. Danielle grabbed the back of the couch to steady herself. So you made the deal, she said quietly. Yes. to protect me. Yes. And you weren't going to tell me. Jaehyun's silence was answer enough. Danielle laughed, bitter and broken. So what was the plan? Let me think everything was fine? Send me back to my life while you lost everything? It's not everything. It's enough. It's worth it. She wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, break something, make him feel the rage tearing through her chest. You don't get to make that choice for me. Yes, I do. No, you don't. This is my life, Jaehyun, my risk, and you took it away from me. I protected you. You controlled me. There's a difference. Jaehyun stepped closer, his voice dropping to something rough and desperate. What was I supposed to do? Let him kill you? Stand by and watch you die because you didn't want me to make a deal? You should have asked me. There wasn't time. Bullshit. You had time. You just didn't trust me enough to let me choose. I trust you. No, you don't. You made a decision that affects both of us, and you didn't even give me a say. That's not trust. That's ownership. Jaehyun flinched like she'd slapped him. I was trying to keep you safe by making me your responsibility instead of your partner. You're not... He stopped, the words dying in his throat. Danielle's chest went tight. I'm not what? You're not part of this world, Danielle. You don't understand how it works. Then explain it to me. I can't. Why not? Because the more you know, the more danger you're in. I'm already in danger. You said so yourself. That's different. How? Jaehyun ran both hands through his hair, frustration radiating off him in waves. Because if you know too much, they won't just threaten you. They'll use you. They'll break you down until you tell them everything, and then they'll kill you anyway because you're a liability. So your solution is to keep me in the dark and hope I stay grateful. My solution is to keep you alive. At what cost? Whatever it takes. Danielle shook her head, tears burning behind her eyes. That's not love, Jaehyun. That's possession. His face went white. I never said I loved you. The words hit like a bullet. Danielle took a step back, her hands shaking. No, you didn't. Danielle, don't. She held up a hand, voice cracking. Just don't. I didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it? Jaehyun opened his mouth, then closed it, and the silence stretched between them like a chasm neither of them could cross. I need air, Danielle said finally. You can't leave. Then unlock a goddamn window. He stared at her for a long moment, then crossed to the nearest window and undid the lock. Cold air rushed in, sharp and clean. Danielle stood there, breathing it in, trying not to fall apart. Behind her, Jaehyun's phone rang. He answered in Korean, his voice clipped and cold. The conversation lasted maybe 30 seconds. When he hung up, his expression had gone blank. What? Danielle asked. We have a problem. Another one? Choi's dead. Danielle's blood went cold. What? Someone killed him. 2 hours ago. Single shot to the head in his own office. Who? I don't know, but everyone's going to think it was me. Was it? Jaehyun looked at her, and the hurt in his eyes was sharp enough to draw blood. No. Then who? Someone who wants a war. Danielle's phone buzzed again. Another message. Told you he was lying, and then he didn't make a deal. He made an enemy. And now you're both dead. She showed Jaehyun the screen. His face went hard, dangerous. Pack your things, he said. Why? Because whoever's doing this knows where we are, and they're coming. They left within 10 minutes. The guards went first, weapons drawn, scanning the tree line. Jaehyun pulled Danielle to the car, his hand tight around her wrist. Get in, he said. Where are we going? Somewhere they won't find us. You said that about the last 2 places. This time I mean it. Danielle got in. Jaehyun slid behind the wheel, and they tore down the gravel road fast enough to kick up rocks against the undercarriage. The guards followed in the second car, headlights cutting through the midday gray. They made it maybe 3 miles before the first shot rang out. The rear window exploded. Danielle screamed, ducking low. Jaehyun cursed, swerving hard to the left. Another shot, this one hitting the side mirror and sending glass flying. Stay down, Jaehyun shouted. Who's shooting? I don't know. He floored it, the car fishtailing on the narrow mountain road. Behind them, the guard's car was taking fire, bullets punching through metal like paper. One of the tires blew, and the car spun out, slamming into a tree with a sickening crunch. Jae-hyun, I know. He didn't stop, couldn't stop. The gunfire followed them, relentless, professional. Whoever this was, they knew what they were doing. Jae-hyun took a sharp turn, the car skidding sideways. Danielle braced against the door, her heart in her throat. Another shot, this one hitting the back tire. The car lurched, spinning out, and Jae-hyun fought to keep it on the road. They crashed into the guardrail with a scream of metal. The airbags deployed, slamming into Danielle's chest hard enough to knock the breath out of her. For a second, everything was white noise and pain. Then Jae-hyun was pulling her out, dragging her toward the tree line. "Run," he said. "I can't." "Run." She ran. They crashed through the underbrush, branches tearing at her clothes, her lungs burning. Behind them, voices shouted in Korean. Close, too close. Jae-hyun pulled her behind a fallen log, both of them breathing hard. He had a gun in his hand. Where had that come from? And his eyes were scanning the trees with lethal focus. "How many?" Danielle whispered. "At least 4. Maybe more." "What do we do?" "We survive." A twig snapped to their left. Jae-hyun moved fast, bringing the gun up, finger on the trigger. A man stepped into view, mid-30s, tactical gear, rifle raised. Jae-hyun fired first, the man dropped. Danielle's ears rang from the gunshot, her hand shaking so hard she couldn't feel her fingers. Jae-hyun grabbed her arm, pulling her up. "Move," he said. They ran deeper into the forest, the voices behind them growing louder, angrier. Another shot. This one so close Danielle felt the air shift beside her head. Jae-hyun shoved her to the ground, covering her body with his. 2 more shots, then silence. "Stay here," he whispered. "Where are you going?" "To end this." "Jae-hyun." But he was already gone, moving through the trees like a shadow. Danielle lay there, pressed into the dirt, listening to her own heartbeat thunder in her ears. She heard more gunfire, distant shouts, the sound of something heavy hitting the ground, and then silence. She waited. 1 minute, 2, 5, nothing. "Jae-hyun?" she whispered. No answer. Danielle pushed herself up slowly, every muscle screaming. She crept forward, moving toward where she'd last seen him disappear. She found him 30 feet away, slumped against a tree, blood soaking through his shirt. "No," she breathed. She ran to him, dropping to her knees. His eyes were half closed, his breathing shallow. "Jae-hyun, stay with me." He looked up at her, his hand coming up to touch her face. "I'm sorry. Don't you dare." "Danielle, we're getting you out of here. Too late." "Shut up, it's not too late." But the blood was spreading, dark and fast, and his skin was going pale, and Danielle knew, she knew, that this was bad. "The deal," he whispered, "wasn't real." "What?" "I lied. There was no deal, just a setup." Danielle's heart stopped. "What are you saying?" "Choi was already dead when I got there. Someone wanted you to think I'd sold you out, wanted to turn you against me." "Who?" "Don't know, but they're still out there." His eyes closed. Jae-hyun, stay with me." But his hand fell away from her face, limp and heavy, and Danielle screamed. She didn't know how long she sat there, holding him, blood on her hands and her clothes and everywhere. Time didn't exist anymore, just the weight of him, the terrible stillness, the sound of her own sobbing. Footsteps behind her. Danielle turned, expecting more gunmen, more violence. Instead, she saw Min Seo, the woman from the gallery. Red dress replaced by tactical black, a gun in her hand, her expression cool and composed. "Hello, Danielle," Min Seo said. Danielle stared at her, her brain refusing to process what she was seeing. "You. Me. You did this." "I did." "Why?" Min Seo smiled, and it was sharp enough to cut. "Because he chose you, and I don't like losing." Danielle's hands clenched into fists, rage boiling through her grief. "You killed him." "Technically, my men did, but yes, I gave the order."
Why? Because love makes men weak, and Jae-hyun was the strongest man I knew, until you.
Danielle tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't hold her. Minseo stepped closer, gun still raised. Don't worry, Minseo said. I'm not going to kill you. That would be too easy. Then what? I'm going to let you live, with the knowledge that you destroyed him, that your very existence made him vulnerable enough to die. That's not, isn't it? Minseo crouched down, meeting Danielle's eyes. He gave up everything for you. Territory, money, respect. And in the end, it didn't matter, because I still won. Danielle's vision blurred with tears and fury. I'll kill you. Minseo laughed. No, you won't. You're not built for this world, Danielle. You're soft, weak, and now you're alone. She stood, turning to leave. Wait, Danielle said, her voice breaking. Minseo looked back. He's not dead, Danielle lied, desperate, grasping. Minseo's smile widened. Yes, he is. I made sure of it. And then she walked away, disappearing into the trees, leaving Danielle alone with the body of the man she'd barely begun to love. Danielle looked down at Jae-hyun, at his still face, at the blood that had stopped flowing. And something inside her broke. Not grief, not fear. Rage. Cold, focused, lethal rage. Minseo was wrong. Danielle wasn't soft. Not anymore. She pressed 2 fingers to Jae-hyun's neck, searching for a pulse she knew she wouldn't find, and felt it. Faint. Thready. But there. Danielle's breath caught. Oh my God! She ripped off her jacket, pressing it against the wound in his side, her hand shaking. Stay with me, please, just stay with me. His eyes fluttered open, barely focusing. Danielle, he whispered, I'm here, I'm not leaving you. Run. No. Please. No. She pulled out her phone, still no service, but she didn't need service. She scrolled through the saved contacts, found the one Jae-hyun had programmed in weeks ago without telling her. Emergency. She hit dial. It rang once. Twice. Hello? I need help, Danielle said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. Jae-hyun's been shot. We're in the mountains outside the safe house. I don't know exactly where, but we're tracking your phone, the voice said. Calm, professional. Help is coming. Keep pressure on the wound. Don't let him move. Okay? And Miss Ardent? Yes? Stay alive. He'd want you to stay alive. The line went dead. Danielle looked down at Jae-hyun, at the man who'd upended her entire world, who'd pulled her into darkness and danger and something that felt terrifyingly close to love. You're not dying, she told him. You hear me? You're not dying, because I'm not done being angry at you yet. His lips twitched, almost a smile, and then his eyes closed again, but his pulse stayed steady, and Danielle held on. The helicopter came in low and fast, rotors chopping through the mountain air like thunder. Danielle kept pressure on the wound, her jacket soaked through with Jae-hyun's blood, her hands cramping from the effort. His pulse was still there, weak, irregular, but there. 2 men dropped from the helicopter before it even touched ground. Medics, moving with military precision. One of them pulled Danielle back, while the other assessed Jae-hyun with quick, efficient hands. How long has he been like this? The first medic asked in English. 10 minutes? Maybe 15. I don't know. Did he lose consciousness? Twice. The medic nodded, already working. They had Jae-hyun on a stretcher within 90 seconds, an IV line in his arm, pressure bandages replacing Danielle's blood-soaked jacket. You're coming with us, the second medic said to Danielle. Where? Somewhere safe. I've heard that before. This time we mean it. They loaded Jae-hyun into the helicopter first. Danielle climbed in after, her legs shaking so badly she almost fell. One of the medics caught her arm, steadied her, then strapped her into a jump seat. The helicopter lifted off, and through the open door Danielle could see the forest below, the crashed car, the bodies scattered in the underbrush, the blood trail leading to where she'd found Jae-hyun, evidence of a war she'd never asked to join. The medic working on Jae-hyun looked up, met her eyes. He's stable. For now. For now? He's lost a lot of blood. The bullet's still in there. We need to get him to a hospital. How long? 20 minutes. Danielle nodded, numb. 20 minutes felt like forever. She looked down at Jae-hyun's face, pale, slack, younger somehow, without the constant tension he carried. His hand was hanging off the edge of the stretcher, fingers limp. Danielle reached out and took it. His fingers twitched, just barely, but enough. Stay with me, she whispered. You don't get to leave yet. Not like this. The hospital was private, underground, the kind of place that didn't exist on any map. They wheeled Jae-hyun straight into surgery while a woman in a gray suit intercepted Danielle in the hallway. Miss Ardent? Danielle turned. The woman was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, composed. Who are you? My name is Park Ji-won. I handle security for Mr. Kwan's operations. You mean you handle his dirty work? Park's expression didn't change. I handle what needs to be handled. Right now, that includes keeping you alive. Great, you're doing a fantastic job. The situation has escalated beyond our initial projections. No shit, Park gestured to a nearby conference room. We need to talk. I need to know if he's going to live. The doctors will do everything they can, but right now, you're the priority. I'm not the one with a bullet in my side. No, but you're the one Min Seo wants. Danielle's blood went cold. How do you know about Min Seo? Because she's been on our radar for 6 months. She was Jae-hyun's business partner until he discovered she was selling information to his competitors. He cut her out. She's been planning this ever since. Planning what? To kill him? To destroy him. Killing him would have been too quick. She wanted him to suffer first. Danielle leaned against the wall, her legs threatening to give out. And I'm the suffering. You're the leverage, the weakness, the thing she could use to break him. She almost succeeded. Almost. Park opened the conference room door. Please, sit. Danielle went inside. The room was sterile, windowless, lit by harsh fluorescent lights. A table, 4 chairs, a laptop open and displaying satellite imagery she didn't understand. Park sat across from her. Min Seo has resources, money, connections, a network of people loyal to her because Jae-hyun took everything from her. He said she wanted things he couldn't give her. He was being polite. The truth is, she wanted him, personally, professionally, and when he made it clear that would never happen, she turned her ambition into revenge. Danielle's chest tightened. So this is about jealousy. Jealousy, power, control, the same things every war is about. I didn't ask for this. No, but you're in it now, and Min Seo won't stop until you're dead or Jae-hyun is. What about both? Park's expression darkened. That's her preferred outcome. Danielle closed her eyes, trying to breathe through the panic clawing up her throat. So what do I do? You let us protect you. For how long? Until we neutralize the threat. How? Park leaned forward. That's not something you need to concern yourself with. Bullshit. I just spent the last hour covered in blood while people tried to kill me. I think I've earned the right to know what happens next. Park studied her for a long moment. You're stronger than Jae-hyun gave you credit for. He didn't think I was strong? He thought you were breakable, worth protecting at all costs. Park's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. He was wrong. What does that mean? It means you have options, Miss Ardent. You can stay here, under guard, waiting for us to handle this, or you can help us end it. Danielle's heart kicked against her ribs. How? Park turned the laptop to face her. The screen showed a building, sleek glass and steel, 20 stories high, surrounded by security cameras. Min Seo's headquarters, Park said. She's there right now, consolidating power, making alliances, preparing for the final move. Which is? Taking over everything Jae-hyun built, and killing anyone who stands in her way, including me, especially you. Danielle stared at the image. What's the plan? We have an asset inside, someone Min Seo trusts. If we can get you in there, absolutely not. Hear me out. No, I'm not walking into her headquarters like bait. You wouldn't be bait, you'd be the distraction. Same thing. Park's eyes hardened. Min Seo thinks you're weak, thinks you're a liability Jae-hyun should have eliminated months ago. If you show up there, alone, demanding answers, She'll see it as proof that you're desperate, not dangerous. And while she's busy gloating, we move in, extract intelligence, dismantle her network from the inside. Danielle laughed, sharp and bitter. You want me to play the helpless girlfriend while you run a military operation. I want you to use her assumptions against her. What if she just kills me on sight? She won't, not immediately. She'll want to savor it, to make you understand how completely you lost. That's insane. It's psychology. Danielle pushed back from the table, her hands shaking. I need to see Jae-hyun first. He's still in surgery. I don't care. I'm not making this decision until I see him. Park stood. Fine. But you're running out of time. Min-seo won't wait forever. They let Danielle into the observation deck above the operating room. Through the glass, she could see the surgeons working, hands moving with brutal efficiency, machines beeping rhythms she didn't understand. Jae-hyun was laid out on the table, his chest cracked open, his life measured in heartbeats displayed on a monitor. Danielle pressed her hand against the glass. A doctor came up beside her, older man, kind eyes behind surgical glasses. He's stable, the doctor said in English. The bullet missed the major organs, but there's internal bleeding we're working to control. Will he live? If we can stop the bleeding, yes, but it's going to be close. How close? The doctor hesitated. He's strong. That's in his favor. But he's lost a lot of blood, and his body's been through significant trauma. The next few hours will tell us everything. Danielle's throat closed. Can I talk to him when he wakes up? If he wakes up tonight, yes, but I wouldn't count on it. We're keeping him sedated to help with the healing. So I just wait. You wait. And you hope. The doctor walked away, leaving Danielle alone with the glass and the machines and the terrible uncertainty of whether Jae-hyun would ever open his eyes again. She thought about the cafe, the spilled coffee, the way he'd looked at her like she was something worth protecting. She thought about the penthouse, the whiskey, the brutal honesty that had terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. She thought about the blood in the forest, the weight of his hand going limp in hers, the way Min-seo had smiled like she'd already won. And Danielle made her decision. Thoughts. Park was waiting when Danielle came back downstairs. I'll do it, Danielle said. Park didn't look surprised. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. We'll need to prepare you, teach you what to say, how to act. I know how to act terrified. I've had plenty of practice. Park's mouth twitched, almost a smile. This way. They went deeper into the facility, past medical wings and storage rooms and doors that required keycards Danielle didn't have. Finally, they entered a room that looked like a briefing center, maps on the walls, computer screens displaying real-time surveillance, 3 people in tactical gear checking weapons. This is the team, Park said. They'll be your backup. You won't see them, but they'll be there. One of the team members, a woman in her 30s with a scar bisecting her left eyebrow, stepped forward. I'm Hana. I'll be your primary contact. You'll have an earpiece. If things go bad, I pull you out. Define bad. If she tries to kill you. Great. Hana handed Danielle a small device, barely bigger than a hearing aid. Put this in your right ear. It's voice activated, but only responds to specific phrases. If you say, I need air, we know you're in trouble. If you say, I'm done here, we extract you immediately. Danielle took the earpiece, turning it over in her fingers. What if she finds this? She won't. It's designed to look like a cosmetic earring. As long as you don't let her get too close, you're fine. And if she does get close? Hana's expression didn't change. Then you improvise. Park pulled up an image on one of the screens, a floor plan of Min-seo's building. You'll enter through the main lobby. Security will stop you, but they've been told to let you through. Min-seo's expecting you. Danielle's stomach dropped. What? We sent her a message from your phone. Told her you wanted to talk. You did what? We needed her to agree to the meeting. She did, eagerly, because she thinks she's going to kill me. Yes, Danielle wanted to throw up. This is insane. This is war, Park corrected, and you just enlisted. Panties. They gave her an hour to prepare. Danielle spent it in a bathroom, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She looked like hell, pale, hollow-eyed, her hair still matted with Jae-hyun's blood. She washed her face, tried to pull herself together, but the fear kept crawling back. Someone knocked on the door. "It's time," Park said. Danielle opened the door. Park handed her a clean jacket. Black, professional, unremarkable. "You look like you're going to a funeral," Danielle said. "If this goes wrong, you will be." Comforting. They walked to the garage where a black sedan waited. Hannah was behind the wheel. 2 other team members sat in the back. "You'll ride up front," Hannah said. "We'll drop you 3 blocks away. You walk in alone. Remember, calm, desperate, looking for answers." "I won't have to fake desperate." "Good. Use it." Danielle got in the car. The door closed with a heavy thunk that felt too much like a coffin lid. They drove through Seoul in silence. The city was alive. Neon lights, crowded streets, people living normal lives that felt impossibly distant. Danielle watched them through the window, wondering if she'd ever be normal again. Probably not. The car stopped 3 blocks from Min Seo's building. Danielle could see it in the distance, tall, glittering, untouchable. "You ready?" Hannah asked. "No." "Good. Fear makes you sharp." Hannah met her eyes in the rearview mirror. "You got this." Danielle got out of the car. The door closed behind her and the sedan pulled away, disappearing into traffic. She was alone. Danielle took a breath, then started walking. The building loomed larger with every step. By the time she reached the entrance, her heart was hammering so hard she thought her ribs might crack. Security stopped her in the lobby. 2 men, both armed, both expressionless. "Name," one of them said. "Danielle Ardent." They exchanged a look. One of them spoke into a radio, too quiet for her to hear. A moment later, he nodded. "20th floor, she's waiting." They didn't search her, didn't check for weapons or wires, just pointed her toward the elevator and stepped aside. Danielle walked forward on legs that felt like water. The elevator ride was smooth, soundless, oppressive. She watched the numbers climb, 10, 15, 18, and tried to remember how to breathe. The doors opened on the 20th floor. Min Seo was waiting. She stood in the center of a massive office, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, sleek furniture that screamed money and power. She wore the same tactical black from the forest, but she'd cleaned up. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, a predator in designer clothing. "Danielle," Min Seo said, smiling, "I'm so glad you came." Danielle stepped out of the elevator. The doors closed behind her with a soft chime. "Where is he?" Danielle asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "Jae-hyun? In surgery, I assume, if he's still alive." "He is. For now." Min Seo crossed to a bar cart, poured 2 glasses of whiskey. "Drink?" "No." "Suit yourself." Min Seo took a sip, watching Danielle over the rim of the glass. "You look terrible." "I've had a rough day." "I imagine so. Getting shot at tends to ruin one's afternoon." Danielle's hands clenched into fists. "Why did you do this?" "Do what? Kill Choi? Frame Jae-hyun? Destroy everything he built?" Min Seo set her glass down. "Because he deserved it." "For what?" "For choosing you." The words landed like a slap. Min Seo laughed, sharp and cold. "Oh, don't look so surprised. Did you really think this was about business, about territory and profit margins? Wasn't it?" "No. It was about him looking at you the way he never looked at me. It was about him risking everything. His empire, his reputation, his life, for some middle-aged American woman with nothing to offer him but mediocrity." Danielle's jaw tightened. "If that's what you think, you don't know him at all. I know him better than you ever will. I built this empire with him. I stood beside him when everyone else walked away. And when I asked him for more, for everything, he said no. So you tried to kill him. I tried to teach him a lesson. That love is weakness. That caring about someone makes you vulnerable. And that I'm the only person who ever truly understood him. You're insane." "I'm practical." Min Seo picked up her glass again. "And now you're here, alone, in my building, surrounded by my people. Which means you're either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both. Or maybe you think you can negotiate." Danielle forced herself to breathe. "I want you to leave him alone." "Why would I do that?" "Because I'll give you whatever you want." Min Seo's smile widened. "There's nothing you have that I want."
Then why did you agree to meet me? Because I wanted to see the woman who broke him. Wanted to understand what made you so special. Minseo circled Danielle slowly, like a shark. And you know what I see? What? Nothing. You're ordinary, forgettable, the kind of woman men use and discard without a second thought. Danielle's hand shook with rage. If that's true, why are you so threatened by me? Minseo stopped. For a second, just a second, something cracked in her composure. I'm not threatened, she said quietly. I'm insulted. Same thing. Minseo's expression went cold. You should leave now, Danielle, before I change my mind about letting you walk out of here. I'm not leaving until you promise to leave Jaehyun alone. I don't make promises to dead women. Danielle's heart stopped. What? Minseo pulled a gun from the bar cart. Small, chrome, deadly. Did you really think I'd let you leave? After everything you've cost me? You said you wanted me to suffer. I did. And you will. But first you're going to tell me where Jaehyun's backups are, his offshore accounts, his contingency plans. I don't know anything about that. Liar.
I'm not lying. He didn't tell me anything. Minseo raised the gun, leveling it at Danielle's chest. Last chance. Tell me what I want to know, or I put a bullet through your heart and figure it out myself. Danielle's mind raced. The earpiece. The code phrase. But if she said it now, the team would move, and Minseo would know. So she did the only thing she could think of. She told the truth. He loved you, Danielle said quietly. Minseo blinked. What?
Jaehyun. He loved you. Maybe not the way you wanted, but he did. He told me once that losing you was the hardest thing he'd ever done. You're lying. I'm not. He said you were brilliant, ruthless, the only person who ever truly challenged him. Minseo's hand wavered, just slightly.
But he also said you wanted more than he could give, Danielle continued. That you wanted him to choose you over everything else, and he couldn't do that. Not because you weren't enough, but because he couldn't be the man you needed him to be. Stop. He regretted it every day, cutting you out, losing you. He said it was the biggest mistake he ever made. Stop talking. But he also said it was necessary, because you would have destroyed each other if you stayed together. Minseo's eyes glistened. He said that? Yes. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Minseo lowered the gun. Get out, she whispered. What? Get out. Before I change my mind. Danielle didn't need to be told twice. She turned, started toward the elevator. The gun went off. Danielle felt the bullet pass so close to her head she heard it whistle. It hit the elevator door with a metallic clang. She spun around. Minseo was smiling again, tears streaming down her face. You almost had me. Almost made me believe that bullshit. It wasn't. Yes, it was. Jaehyun never regretted anything, least of all me. She raised the gun again. Now, one more time. Where are his backups? The office door exploded inward. Hana and her team poured through, weapons raised, voices shouting commands in Korean. Minseo fired twice, wild, desperate shots that went wide. Hana tackled her to the ground, the gun skittering across the floor. Danielle dropped to her knees, ears ringing, hands shaking. Someone pulled her up, one of the team members. You okay? Yeah, I think so. We need to move. Now. They dragged Danielle toward the shattered door. Behind them, Hana was cuffing Minseo, reading her rights in Korean while Minseo screamed threats and curses. Danielle looked back once. Minseo's eyes met hers, full of hate and heartbreak, and something that looked almost like respect. This isn't over, Minseo said. Yes, Danielle replied. It is. The extraction was fast, professional, brutal. They were in the car and gone within 3 minutes. Danielle sat in the back seat, shaking, while Hana drove and Park made phone calls in rapid-fire Korean. Is she? Danielle started. Contained, Park said. For now. What happens to her? That's not your concern. The hell it isn't. Park turned to look at her. Miss Ardent, you did well tonight, but your part in this is over. Like hell it is. You're a civilian, not an operative. The The best thing you can do now is go back to your life and let us handle the cleanup. Danielle laughed, bitter and broken. You think I have a life to go back to? Park's expression softened, just slightly. That's up to you. The car pulled up outside the hospital. Danielle got out without waiting for permission, her legs steadier now, her hands still shaking but her mind clear. She walked through the doors, past security, straight to the surgical wing. The doctor from before was waiting. He's out of surgery, the doctor said. Stable, unconscious, but stable. Can I see him? 5 minutes, that's all. I'll take it. They led her to a recovery room. Jae-hyun was hooked up to machines, IVs running into both arms, bandages wrapped around his torso. His face was pale, slack, but his chest rose and fell in steady rhythm. Danielle pulled a chair up beside the bed and sat down. She took his hand, the same hand she'd held in the forest, the same hand that had gone limp and heavy and almost dead. It was warm now. I met her, Danielle said quietly. Min Seo. She's exactly as terrible as you said. Jae-hyun didn't respond. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. She tried to kill me, obviously, but I'm still here because your people are terrifyingly competent. She squeezed his hand. I need you to wake up, she whispered, because I have things to say to you. Angry things, honest things, things I should have said weeks ago. His fingers twitched. Danielle's breath caught. Jae-hyun? His eyes opened, just barely. Unfocused, glassy from the drugs, but open. Danielle, he rasped. I'm here. You're alive. Yeah. Disappointed? His mouth curved, almost a smile. Never. Good, because you don't get to die on me. You hear me? You don't get to leave. Not planning to. Good. His eyes closed again, but his hand stayed warm in hers. And for the first time in hours, Danielle let herself believe they might actually survive this. Outside the room, Park was waiting. We have a problem, Park said. Of course they did. What now? Danielle asked. Min Seo's organization is bigger than we thought. She has allies, people who won't stop just because she's in custody. So what does that mean? It means this isn't over, not by a long shot. Danielle looked back through the window at Jae-hyun, bruised, broken, but alive. Then we finish it, she said. Park raised an eyebrow. We? Yeah, we. You're not trained for this. I wasn't trained for any of this, but I'm still here. Park studied her for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. All right, Miss Ardent, let's finish it. And somewhere in the city, in the shadows where empires rose and fell, the final battle began to take shape. Ah-hyun woke up fully 3 days later. Danielle was asleep in the chair beside his bed when his hand moved. Not a twitch this time, but a deliberate squeeze of her fingers. She jerked awake, disoriented, her neck stiff from the awkward angle. Hey, he said. His voice was rough, scraped raw from the breathing tube they'd removed that morning. Hey yourself. Danielle sat up, rubbing her eyes. You look like hell. Feel worse. Good. You deserve it. He almost smiled. Still mad at me? Furious. Fair. She stood, poured water from the pitcher on the bedside table, held the cup while he drank. His hands were shaking too much to hold it himself. How long was I out? He asked. 3 days. They had to keep you sedated while the internal bleeding stopped. And Min Seo? In custody, for now. Jae-hyun's jaw tightened. What does that mean? It means Park thinks her organization is planning something. A rescue attempt, maybe, or retaliation. They won't get her out. You sound sure. I am. Park doesn't lose prisoners. Danielle set the cup down, her hands clenching into fists. You could have died, Jae-hyun. I know. You almost did die. I was holding you while you bled out in the middle of a forest. I know. And your first question when you wake up is about Min Seo? Jae-hyun looked at her, really looked, and she saw exhaustion in his eyes that had nothing to do with blood loss. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me this is over. I can't. Why not? Because it's not. Not yet. Danielle wanted to scream,
wanted to walk out and never come back, but her feet stayed planted and her chest ached with something she didn't want to name. "Park wants me to help," she said quietly. Jae-hyun went very still. "Help with what?" "Finishing this, taking down the rest of Min Seo's network." "Absolutely not." "It's not your decision."
The hell it isn't. You're not trained for this, Danielle. You're a consultant, not a soldier.
"I survived Min Seo face to face. I think I've earned the right to see this through." "You survived because you got lucky. Next time you might not." "There won't be a next time if we end this now." Jae-hyun tried to sit up, winced, fell back against the pillows. "You don't know what you're asking for." "Then tell me." "It's not clean. It's not heroic. It's ugly and brutal, and it changes you." "I'm already changed." "Not like this." Danielle leaned forward, her voice dropping. "I held your hand while you were dying. I walked into Min Seo's headquarters knowing she wanted to kill me. I've been shot at, threatened, and turned into leverage for a war I didn't start. Don't tell me I don't know what this costs." Jae-hyun closed his eyes. "I never wanted this for you."
I know, but it's what I have. So either let me finish it, or spend the rest of your life knowing I'm out there somewhere, waiting for the next threat to find me. He was quiet for a long time. The machines beeped their steady rhythm, counting heartbeats, measuring the space between survival and surrender. "What's Park's plan?" he asked finally. "I don't know yet. She's waiting for you to wake up." "Then get her. We do this together, or we don't do it at all." Convenient. Park arrived 20 minutes later with a laptop, a tablet, and a look that said she'd been waiting for this conversation. "You look better," she said to Jae-hyun. "I look like I got shot." An improvement over dead. She set up the laptop on the rolling table, pulled up a series of files. Surveillance photos, financial records, organizational charts with faces and names Danielle didn't recognize. Min Seo's network has 3 primary cells, Park said: Seoul, Busan, and Incheon. Each one operates semi-autonomously, but they're all loyal to her. Now that she's in custody, they're scrambling to consolidate power. "Who's leading them?" Jae-hyun asked. "Her second in command, a man named Kang Dae-jung, former military, dishonorably discharged for conduct violations. Smart, ruthless, and very invested in keeping Min Seo's empire intact. Because if it falls apart, he has nothing." "Exactly." Jae-hyun studied the photos. "Where is he now?" "Busan. He's been moving assets, liquidating accounts, preparing for a power play." "What kind of power play?" Park pulled up another file. "We intercepted communication suggesting he's planning to break Min Seo out of custody, and once she's free, they're going after you, both of you." Danielle's blood went cold. "When?" "We don't know, but it'll be soon. He knows we're watching. The longer he waits, the harder it gets." Jae-hyun's expression went hard. "So we move first." "Agreed, but we need leverage, something that forces Kang to stand down without starting a full-scale war." "Like what?" Park hesitated. "Min Seo has a daughter." The room went silent. "What?" Danielle said. "A daughter, 12 years old, lives with Min Seo's mother in Jeju Island. Min Seo kept her existence secret to protect her from exactly this kind of situation." Jae-hyun's jaw clenched. "You want to use a child as leverage. I want to use the threat of exposure. If Kang knows we can make the girl's existence public, make her a target for Min Seo's enemies, he'll back down to protect her." "That's still using a child." "It's using information. There's a difference." "Not much of one." Park's expression didn't change. "This is the option that doesn't end in bodies, Jae-hyun. If you have a better idea, I'm listening." Jae-hyun looked at Danielle. She could see the question in his eyes, the weight of the choice pressing down on both of them. "We don't hurt the girl," Danielle said quietly. "We don't even go near her. But if threatening to expose her keeps Min Seo's people from coming after us, then we do it." "That's not the person you are," Jae-hyun said. "Maybe it is now." He stared at her, something like grief crossing his face. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I made my choice." Park cleared her throat. "So we're agreed?" Jae-hyun nodded slowly. "Yeah, we're agreed." The operation took 2 weeks to plan. Jae-hyun recovered faster than the doctors expected, driven by the kind of stubborn refusal to stay down that Danielle was starting to recognize as his defining trait. By the end of the first week, he was walking. By the end of the second, he was back in meetings, coordinating with Park and her team, building the framework for what they were calling the endgame. Danielle spent those 2 weeks learning. Park brought in instructors, firearms training, hand-to-hand combat, tactical communication. Danielle wasn't going to be frontline, but Park insisted she needed to know how to defend herself if things went wrong. And things always went wrong. On the 13th day, Park called them into the briefing room. "We have confirmation," she said. "Kang is moving against Min Seo's holding facility tomorrow night. He's hired a private security team, former special forces, well-armed, well-trained. If they succeed, Min Seo walks free and we lose our window." "So we stop them," Jae-hyun said. "We can't. Not without starting a firefight in the middle of Seoul." "Then what?" Park pulled up a map. "We let them think they're succeeding. We move Min Seo to a secondary location, somewhere controlled, defensible. When Kang's team hits the original facility, they find it empty. And while they're regrouping, we make contact with Kang directly." "And tell him what?" "That we have information about his employer's daughter, that if he doesn't stand down, we make that information public." Jae-hyun leaned back in his chair. "He'll call our bluff." "Maybe. But he'll also know that if anything happens to you or Miss Ardent, the information goes public automatically. It's mutually assured destruction." Cold War tactics. Effective Cold War tactics. Danielle looked between them. "What if he doesn't care? What if he's willing to risk the girl to get Min Seo back?" "Then we have a bigger problem," Park said. "But I don't think he will. Kang is loyal, but he's not suicidal. And Min Seo's daughter is the one thing she values more than revenge." "You're betting a lot on that assumption." "I'm betting on human nature, and human nature is predictable." But the night of the operation, Danielle couldn't sleep. She stood at the window of the safe house, a different one this time, closer to the city, with reinforced walls and guards posted every 50 feet. Seoul glittered below her, oblivious to the war being waged in its shadows. Jae-hyun came up beside her. He moved quieter than he used to, favoring his left side where the bullet had torn through. "You should rest," he said. "Can't." "Scared?" "Terrified." He nodded. "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." "That's what Hana said." "Hana's smart." They stood in silence, watching the city breathe. "What happens after?" Danielle asked. "After what?" "After this is over. After Min Seo's network is dismantled and Kang backs down and we're not running anymore. What happens to us?" Jae-hyun was quiet for a long time. "I don't know." "That's honest." "It's all I have." Danielle turned to face him. "Do you regret it? Bringing me into this?" "Every day." "That's not what I expected you to say. You asked for honesty." "I did." She reached out, took his hand. "For what it's worth, I don't regret it. Any of it." "You should." "Probably, but I don't." Jae-hyun's fingers tightened around hers. "I love you." The words hung in the air between them, raw and unguarded. Danielle's breath caught. "You said you never said that." "I lied." "When did you know?" "The moment you didn't run. When you should have. When anyone with sense would have. You stayed. And I knew I was done for." Danielle felt tears burn behind her eyes. "I love you too, even though you're impossible and dangerous and you've ruined my life." "I know." "Good." She kissed him then, slow and deliberate, tasting the truth of it. When they pulled apart, Jae-hyun rested his forehead against hers. "If this goes bad tomorrow," he started. "It won't. But if it does, then we deal with it. Together." "Together," he echoed. And for the first time in weeks, Danielle felt something that wasn't fear. It felt like hope. The facility transfer happened at midnight. Park's team moved Min Seo in an armored transport, 3 decoy vehicles running identical routes to confuse surveillance. Danielle and Jae-hyun watched from a command center 2 miles away, screens displaying real-time feeds from body cameras and drones. Min Seo looked smaller on the screens, handcuffed, flanked by guards, her expression blank. But when she passed one of the cameras, She looked directly into it and smiled. Danielle's stomach turned.
She knows, she said. Knows what? Park asked. That we're watching. That this is a setup. Doesn't matter. As long as Kang thinks she's at the original facility, the plan works. 30 minutes later, Kang's team hit the original facility. The breach was fast, professional. Explosives on the doors, flashbangs, tactical entry. They swept the building in under 4 minutes and found it empty. Danielle watched Kang's face on the screen. Fury, confusion, the dawning realization that he'd been played. Now, Park said. She made the call. Kang's phone, secure line, routed through 3 proxies. He answered on the second ring. Who is this? Someone who has information you need, Park said in Korean. Danielle's earpiece translated in real time. What kind of information? About Min Seo's daughter. Her name is Chae-won. She's 12. Lives in Jeju with her grandmother. Attends Seogwipo International School. Likes piano and swimming. Silence on the other end. If anything happens to Jae Hyun Kwon or Danielle Ardent, Park continued, that information becomes public. Every enemy Min Seo has ever made will know exactly where to find the girl, and you know what happens then. You're bluffing. Am I? You want to test that theory? More silence. What do you want? Kang asked finally. Stand down. Dismantle the network. Walk away. And if I don't? Then Chae-won becomes the most valuable target in Korea, and Min Seo spends the rest of her life knowing her daughter paid for her ambition. Kang's breathing was audible over the line. You're willing to threaten a child. I'm willing to do what's necessary to end this. The question is, are you? The line went dead. Park set the phone down. Now we wait. Bachnik. The answer came 6 hours later. Kang sent a message through an intermediary. He was standing down. Min Seo's network would be dissolved within 72 hours. The cells in Busan and Incheon were already shutting down operations. It was over. Danielle sat in the command center staring at the message on the screen, unable to process it. That's it? She asked. That's it, Park said. No firefight? No last-minute betrayal? Sometimes the threat is enough. Jae-hyun was beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder. It's done, Danielle. What about Min-seo? She'll stand trial, likely spend the rest of her life in prison. And her daughter? Stays with her grandmother, safe, anonymous. Danielle closed her eyes, exhaustion crashing over her like a wave. I need to sleep for a week. You've earned it. They released Min Seo's case to the prosecutors 3 days later. Danielle insisted on being there when they transferred her from the secure facility to the courthouse. She needed to see it, needed to know it was real. Min Seo was led out in cuffs and an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back, her face bare of makeup. She looked older, harder, diminished. But when she saw Danielle standing in the corridor, she stopped. The guards tried to move her along, but Min Seo planted her feet. You won, Min Seo said. Danielle stepped closer. No, I survived. There's a difference. Is there? Yeah. Winning would mean I got what I wanted. All I got was a life I'm still trying to figure out. Min Seo's expression softened, just slightly. He really loves you. I know. And you love him. Yeah. Then you're braver than I thought. Min Seo looked away, her jaw tight. Or more foolish. Probably both. The guards pulled Min Seo forward. She went without resistance, but she looked back once. Take care of him, she said. He's not as strong as he pretends. I know that too. And then Min Seo was gone, led through the doors to a future that no longer included empires or revenge or the man she'd tried to destroy. Danielle stood there for a long time, feeling the weight of it settle. Chae-hyun came up beside her. You okay? I don't know. Ask me in a year. Fair. They left Seoul 2 weeks later. Not permanently. Jae-hyun still had business to handle, connections to maintain, an empire that was smaller now but still his. But he needed distance, and Danielle needed air. They went to Jeju Island. Not to find Min Seo's daughter. Danielle had made Park promise the girl would never know they were there.
but because it was quiet, isolated, and far enough from the city that Danielle could breathe without looking over her shoulder. They rented a house on the coast, small and unremarkable, with windows that faced the ocean. Danielle spent the first 3 days doing nothing but sleeping and staring at the water. On the 4th day, Jae-hyun found her on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sun come up. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Don't want to. I keep having nightmares." "About what?" "The forest. Your blood on my hands. Minseo's gun." Jae-hyun sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "They'll fade, eventually." "You sound sure." "I've had my share of nightmares. They don't disappear, but they get quieter." Danielle leaned against him, the warmth of his body grounding her. "What happens now?" "We figure it out, one day at a time." "That's not much of a plan." "It's the only one I have." She almost smiled. "You say that a lot, too." "Because it's true a lot." They sat in silence, watching the ocean turn gold in the early light. Somewhere out there, the world kept spinning. Seoul kept growing. Minseo's trial kept progressing. Park kept dismantling what was left of the network. But here, on this quiet stretch of coast, Danielle let herself believe in the possibility of peace. "I want to stay," she said quietly. "In Jeju?" "With you." Jae-hyun turned to look at her, something vulnerable breaking through his careful composure. "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm choosing it anyway." "Even after everything?" "Especially after everything." She took his hand, threading her fingers through his. "I spent 3 years building a life that was safe and small and completely alone, and I was miserable. You gave me chaos and danger and something worth fighting for. I'm not giving that up. It won't always be easy. I don't want easy. I want real." Jae-hyun's thumb brushed over her knuckles, the gesture so familiar now it felt like home. "Then stay, as long as you want, as long as you can stand me. That might be a while." "Good." He kissed her then, slow and deliberate, and Danielle felt the last of her fear dissolve into something stronger, something that tasted like the future. When they pulled apart, the sun was fully up, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "There's something I need to tell you," Jae-hyun said. Danielle's chest tightened. "What?" "I'm getting out. Of the business, all of it." She stared at him. "What?" "I've been thinking about it for a while. Even before Minseo, the cost is too high. The risk is too great, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder." "What will you do?" "I don't know yet. Something legitimate. Something that doesn't require armed guards and safe houses." "You're serious?" "Yeah." "When did you decide this?" "When I woke up in that hospital and realized I'd almost lost you, and that if I kept going the way I was, I would lose you. Eventually." Danielle's throat tightened. "You'd give up everything for me?" "I'd give up anything for you." She felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back. "That's terrifying." "I know. And kind of beautiful." "That too." She laughed, broken and honest. "We're a mess." "Yeah, but we're our mess." Imakam. 3 months later, Jae-hyun signed the papers transferring his remaining operations to a coalition of former associates who'd proven themselves trustworthy. Park oversaw the transition, making sure no one tried to exploit the power vacuum. Danielle watched it happen from a distance, still adjusting to the idea that they were actually free. They stayed in Jeju for 6 months, then moved back to Seoul. But this time they chose a neighborhood that wasn't connected to Jae-hyun's old life. A quiet street in Seongbuk-dong, near the mountains, where people didn't know who he used to be. Jae-hyun started consulting, helping legitimate businesses navigate international logistics without the shadow work. It was boring compared to what he'd done before, but he seemed lighter for it. Danielle went back to freelance work, but she also started writing. At first it was just journaling, processing everything that had happened, trying to make sense of the chaos. But then it became something more. A story. Their story, fictionalized and distant enough to be safe. She didn't know if she'd ever publish it, but writing it felt like reclaiming the narrative, like taking control of the thing that had almost destroyed her. On their 1-year anniversary, counted from the day he'd spilled coffee on her laptop, Jae-hyun took her back to Mrs. Cho's cafe. It looked exactly the same.
Same tables, same smell of roasted beans, same corner spot by the window. Mrs. Cho greeted them with a smile that said she'd known all along they'd end up here. "Americano?" she asked. "Two," Jae-hyun said. They sat at the corner table, the morning light streaming through the window, the city waking up around them.
"You know what today is?" Danielle asked. "Yeah. 1 year since you ruined my laptop. Best investment I ever made." She kicked him lightly under the table. "You're ridiculous. And you love me anyway." Unfortunately, Jae-hyun reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box. Danielle's heart stopped. "What is that?" "Open it." She took the box with shaking hands. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, a single diamond set in platinum. "Jae-hyun, I'm not asking you to marry me," he said quickly. "Not yet, but I'm asking you to think about it, to consider a future where this," he gestured between them, "is permanent." Danielle stared at the ring, her vision blurring. "You're insane." "Probably. We've only known each other a year." "I know. And most of that year involved people trying to kill us." "I know that too. But I've never been more sure of anything in my life." He reached across the table, took her hand. "You don't have to answer now, just think about it." Danielle looked at him, this man who'd upended her entire existence, who'd pulled her into darkness and danger and something that felt impossibly like love. And she realized she'd already made her decision. She took the ring out of the box and slid it onto her finger. "I don't need to think about it," she said. Jae-hyun's eyes went wide. "Danielle." "Yes. The answer is yes." "You're sure?" "No, but I'm choosing it anyway." He laughed, raw and honest, and pulled her across the table to kiss her. Mrs. Cho clapped from behind the counter, and the few other customers looked over with curious smiles. When they pulled apart, Danielle was crying. So was Jae-hyun. "We're still a mess," she said. "Always will be." "Good." They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony on Jeju Island. Just them, Park, Hana, and Mrs. Cho, the people who'd kept them alive long enough to get there. No big reception, no press, no remnants of Jae-hyun's old life trying to crash the party. Just two people who'd survived the worst and chosen each other anyway. Danielle wore a simple white dress. Jae-hyun wore a suit that didn't make him look like a crime boss. They exchanged vows on the beach at sunset, the ocean wind pulling at their clothes, the sky painted in colors that looked too beautiful to be real. When the officiant pronounced them married, Jae-hyun kissed her like it was the first time and the last time and every moment in between. And Danielle felt the last piece of her old life. The fear, the doubt, the carefully constructed walls crumble into nothing. She was free. They were free. 1 year later, Danielle stood in the same cafe where it had all started, holding a cup of coffee and watching the city wake up. Jae-hyun was beside her, his hand resting on the small of her back, his presence as steady and certain as it had been that first morning. "You know what I was thinking," Danielle said. "What?" "That day you spilled coffee on my laptop, I was so angry." "I remember. But if you hadn't done it, if you just walked past my table like a normal person, we wouldn't be here." "Probably not. Do you think it was fate?" Jae-hyun considered. "I think it was choice. You could have told me to get lost, could have refused the laptop, could have run the first time things got dangerous. But I didn't." "No, you didn't." Danielle leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of his body, the steady rhythm of his breathing. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Any of it?" "No, not anymore." "Me neither." They stood there in the quiet cafe, two people who'd found each other in the chaos, and decided to build something worth keeping. Outside, Seoul hummed with its 10 million lives, each one moving through their own battles, their own choices, their own stories. But inside this small corner of the world, Danielle Arden had everything she needed. A man who loved her, a life she'd chosen, and the absolute certainty that she'd survived the worst and come out stronger, not rescued, not saved, just alive, and fiercely, defiantly, impossibly happy. Jae-hyun's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then smiled. "What?" Danielle asked. "Park. She says Min Seo's sentence came through. 20 years. No parole." Danielle exhaled slowly. It's really over. Yeah, it really is. She took his hand, threading her fingers through his.
So what do we do now? Jae-hyun looked at her, his expression soft and unguarded in a way that still took her breath away. We live, he said. We just live. And that's exactly what they did. What?
5 years later, Danielle published a novel. It was fiction, mostly, about a woman who fell in love with a dangerous man and survived long enough to tell the story. It became a bestseller in Korea, then internationally. Reviewers called it raw, honest, unflinching. Readers said it felt real in a way most thrillers didn't. Danielle never told them how much of it was true. Jae-hyun read it in one sitting, then looked at her with tears in his eyes. You made us sound heroic, he said. We were. In our own way. We were just trying to survive. Same thing. He pulled her close, holding her like she was something precious he'd almost lost. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For staying. For choosing this. For choosing me. Danielle kissed him, slow and deliberate. Always. On the morning of their 7th anniversary, Danielle woke up to find Jae-hyun already awake, staring at the ceiling. Can't sleep? She asked. Just thinking. About what? About how different my life would be if I hadn't spilled that coffee. Danielle propped herself up on one elbow. Regrets? Never. Good answer. He turned to face her, his hand coming up to brush her hair back from her face. I'd do it all again. Every dangerous, terrifying, impossible moment, if it meant ending up here. With me? With you. Danielle felt her chest tighten with the kind of love that still surprised her, even after all this time. Me too, she said. They lay there in the early morning light, two people who'd walked through fire and come out whole. Not perfect, not undamaged, but together. And that was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. Monkit. The end. Danielle Arden had rebuilt herself once after a divorce that left her hollow. She'd moved to a foreign city, learned to live alone, learned to survive on her own terms. And then a man spilled coffee on her laptop and changed everything. He was dangerous. He was impossible. He pulled her into a world of violence and power and choices that should have broken her. But they didn't. Because somewhere in the chaos, Danielle discovered something she'd forgotten. That love wasn't about safety. It was about choosing someone even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Chae-hyun Kwan gave up an empire for her. Danielle Ardent gave up safety for him. And together, they built something neither of them had thought possible. A life, a future, a love that survived everything the world threw at it. In the end, that was the only victory that mattered. Not power, not revenge, not even survival. Just two people standing in a cafe in Seoul, holding each other against the weight of everything they'd endured, and choosing, every single day, to stay. Because that's what love is. Not the easy moments, not the grand gestures, but the quiet, deliberate choice to keep showing up, even when it's terrifying, especially when it's terrifying. And Danielle Ardent, 43 years old, divorced, scarred, and stronger than she'd ever imagined, chose to stay, with the most dangerous man in the room, and called it her future.